Miami-Dade Beacon Council. My name is Ron Heller. I'm President and CEO of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, and we are so glad to be having the conversation that we're going to have today. The Beacon Council is the economic development entity charged with growing the economy in Miami-Dade, which we are charged with attracting investment, retaining investment, and making sure the economy is healthy. We define a healthy economy as sustainable. So we want to make sure that it's sustainable in terms of, regular growth and high-level predictability in terms of how business happens. But we also think about sustainability in terms of the built environment. We believe that the economy, that the environment is both our biggest existential challenge as well as our biggest economic opportunity. We believe in growing an economy that's inclusive. So whether you're black, white, purple, and you live in Hialeah, Miami Gardens, Florida City, Miami Beach, you should be able to participate whether you're a man, woman, veteran, disabled. So we want to increase the economy, and we want to ultimately build an economy that's competitive. That's on the face of it. We want the economy to be more attractive. It can take a snapshot a year from now than it is today. So that's what the Beacon Council is all about. This is an event that we're doing with our initiative, Opportunity Miami. Opportunity Miami is really kind of our future focused on thinking about how do we build the Miami of 2040 that we really want. And this is part of a series that we do every quarter where we bring in business leaders, innovators to talk about what's happening in their business and how it impacts, Opportunity Miami pillars of entrepreneurship, talent, and environment. And so we're very honored today to have Rick Sasso, the chairman of MSC Cruises, with us. It's going to be a fascinating conversation, so I'm really looking forward to it. But before we hop in, I'd love to invite the Deputy Director of our Ports, Fred Wong, to make a few comments.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Oh my gosh. So, my name is Fred Wong. I'm the Deputy Port Director here at PortMiami, here at PortMiami. So I see a lot of friendly faces in the industry. Of course, PortMiami has been most definitely a staple to Miami-Dade County, and the city. I'm glad to say that I celebrated my 30th year here in the maritime business at PortMiami. Thank you so much. So I'm going to take a point of privilege. I started way back when I was 18 years old, right from the bottom, punching parking tickets in the stuff. So rock and roll. See, this industry just absolutely grow. See a lot of friendly faces, and with that growth of the industry, of course, the economics of the growth. PortMiami, we are doing great. PortMiami, we hit a global record number last fiscal year of 7.3 million passengers. That is a global number. As far as cruising goes, we have the benefit to have our north, our west, and our south side populated with cruise terminals. Right now, we currently have 9 cruise terminals that handle the mega ships. And of course, by the end of the year, we're going to end up having a population of 11 cruise terminals that will end up handling vessels as large as 6,000 to 7,000 passengers, and then a crew complement of another 3,000. So up to 10 to 11,000 souls on board these vessels that are coming alongside, and you multiply it times 11. So it is very robust. It's great. The maritime industry as a whole, as an economic engine, we ended up doing some numbers. We hit $61 billion that we end up contributing for our region and for Miami-Dade County as a whole. About 340,000 jobs, direct, indirect, induced. We're talking about all the ground operators, the security staff, the BCOs, the warehousing, everything that contributes to our U.S. supply chain is happening right here at PortMiami. So it is an absolute honor and a pleasure to be part of that whole entire supply chain in this industry. Being here and seeing all you friendly faces, you guys all contribute to the success of PortMiami. And throughout the years, we couldn't do it without you, and we're still continuing to grow. Our PortMiami is only 522 acres. So a lot of people, they don't know that PortMiami was built with the spoils of the Federal Channel. So the Federal Channel right now, we're at negative 52 feet. So we can end up handling those super post-Panamax vessels that come in and out of the Suez or the Panama Canal. So not only are we robust on the cruise side, but as far as the container industry and the cargo line, we are the #1 international container port in the state of Florida. So a lot of people don't know that we're a consumer market. These vessels come through the Suez, they come through the Panama Canal, and it's consumed right here, all the goods and services right here in Miami. So, we are a great provider for our local economy, for our international economy, and for everybody here working. So it is an absolute pleasure being here with you guys. Thank you for honoring me to say a few words, on behalf of our CEO, Heidi Webb. She would have been here for sure, but she's on the West Coast on some travel, so she was like, all right, you're going to step in. I said, I got it. So it is an absolute pleasure to be here, and it's an absolute pleasure to introduce my friend, Rick Sasso. Let me just say a couple words as far as MSC and MSC Cruises. It is such a phenomenal company. It has cruise and cargo, which you never see. It is so original. When you're in the cruise business, you're a cruise line and you end up handling cruise. When you're in the cargo business and you're a shipping line, that's what you do as well. They are so good at what they do as far as the maritime industry. They have cruise and cargo operations going on. And guess what? Port Miami has both right here at their Port Miami. So it is an absolute honor and a pleasure for me to introduce Mr. Chairman, Rick Sasso. Wow. Hi. That's me.
I told you guys we were going to have an exciting conversation today, and I'm really looking forward to it. One of the things I'd be remiss if I didn't do, I have to recognize the chairman, the co-chair of Opportunity Miami, Mr. Rick Beasley. Rick is also, Career Source South Florida is also the sponsor of Opportunity Miami in this event. So we thank Rick for his continued leadership. So let's hop right into it. We were having a great conversation even before this started this morning. So we're just going to pick up where we left off. Let's start with a brief introduction. Sharing us a little bit about yourself. How you got started in the cruise industry? How you got started with MSC and your role as chairman?
It's a 52-year-long story, so I'll try and cut it down to just a few minutes. I've been very lucky. I sound like a New Yorker, but I actually graduated from Miami Central High School, 1967. I usually know that to say the year. Then I was lucky as I attended Miami-Dade. I was lucky enough to get a job with British Airways and Bahamas Airways in Miami Airport. And I loaded bags and I did all the stuff that you do when you work for an airline in that entry level. Then I was lucky enough to meet my spouse in 1971, and we got married in 1972 in the Church of the Little Flower in Coral Gables. So my Florida heritage is pretty strong. And fortunately, that very same year, 52 years ago, I started with Costa Cruises in the port of Miami. And I used to come down here every time there was a shipping port, and they were usually ships that only carried 800 passengers. And there were only 5 terminals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that job gave me a taste of this industry. And my dad was the one who forced me to leave the airline to go to the cruise, because he said, there's more opportunity in cruise. And I said, thanks, Dad. And I took the Costa job. And luckily enough, over the years, I was able to be part of a team that launched Celebrity Cruises back in 1988. I became the CEO of that company. We sold it to Royal Caribbean in 97, 98, and I retired in 2002. I was 54. Mr. Aponte, the owner of MSC, had called me and said, I heard you were the guy that's the Miami cruise line guy, and I want to open an office in Florida. This was 20 years ago. And we're going to be building a lot of new ships, so I need you to come aboard. So I accepted that position 20 years ago, and we have had a remarkable 20 years. It's almost staggering. We are the fastest growing cruise line in the history of cruising.
Yeah.
We are. have the youngest fleet now in increasing because we started building on the ships in 2003 and 4. So all of a sudden we invested $20 billion and we've made this Florida our home for the cruise division. The cargo division was already here and very successful. We are the largest, the same owner is the largest container ship operator in the world with 750 container ships, of which visit here. So we are that buy company we have ferries and things like that, but it's a privately owned company. It's owned by one family. And I am the chairman of the U.S. Region. The owner is the chairman of the world, let's call it. The decisions that are made so much more efficiently and so much more spontaneously because it's this family company that has this kind of a great group of executives, including myself, and that we are contributing to the vision of this company almost every day. But I can tell you the one shining example is exactly what we're going to be talking about here today, and that's environment and sustainability. It is at the core of everything this company does. And because it's a family-owned company, it's more important to be that aggressive. It's more important to be that focused on that. So communities is the second piece, that we love to engage with communities, that we are doing that around the world. I represent the MSC Foundation on this part of the world, and we do a lot of relief efforts, and I know you're familiar with relief efforts. We do that, but it's also environment and an efficiency of everything we do, whether it's on the cruise ships or on our shore offices. We make sure that the environment is part of our core responsibility. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So my career over 50 years allowed me to see some incredible changes, and I want to compliment Heidi Webb, because Fred knows, we had our operations in Fort Lauderdale for 10 years, that from 2004 to 13. Heidi called me every 6 months and said, Rick, why don't you move your ships to Miami? And I said, look, right now we're settled in, our offices are up there, we have the ships at Fort Lauderdale. But every 6 months, as politely as could be, because typically executives are going, oh, gee, she's calling me again. Just the opposite with her. I asked her to explain to me why every time. Why should we move there? What's going to happen there? She portrayed Miami as this incredible place that we would never not want to be. And finally, in 2013, we moved our cruise operations to the port of Miami, and ever since then, this has been our home port for our cruise division. Yeah. And it's not just one ship every 6 months. It's now going to be 4 ships in a couple of months.
You're right.
And so we're going to be a major contributor to this economy here, and we're going to do as much as we can to make sure we keep going.
Thank you. One of the things is we can't really overstate the impact of the trade and logistics industry and the impact of the tourism industry in Miami. Can you talk to us a little bit more about, why Miami works for MSC?
It's actually a beautiful story because the Magic City, I guess as it's called, the cruise capital of the world, which it is. And we're going to make sure it never changes, that it's always going to be a magic city because we'll contribute to that. And we're also going to make sure it maintains its strength as the cruise capital of the world. But that takes a lot of investment and a lot of courage because you have to also economically fill the ships every week. And so I think Miami, and again, I'm a homegrown, right? High school and everything. So I love Miami. I lived here for most of my 52 years. I'm in Palm Beach now. As I got a little older, I'll be 75 on Saturday. I don't know where I got that. I look pretty good on that one. I thank Sydney for that. She made sure.
Good job.
Yeah. So Miami had a special place in my heart, obviously. When you see what's happened here, and I think this is the best way to describe it. If I go back all those years, one thing that's significant is there would not be 32 million people housing if it wasn't for the cruise industry building ships. If we didn't build all those ships, there'd only be 8 cruising. And this port maybe will have half of the 7 million that you have. And the thing that the cruise industry has done by building those ships, we also know that the port itself, and I look at ports all around the world. I have to go to the Caribbean and look at advanced strategies. I have to go to California and see what's going on. When you port did here, from where it was, 1972 to where it is today, took investment and it took vision. And it's the Heidi's of the world and Commissioner Sosa, who was expansion. It was the Beacon Council, the community itself. And Ron and I had a chat earlier before we came out here, and I think that the one signal that makes this Magic City so successful is that everyone got together. The commissioners, the mayor, the port, the airport. We meet with airport people because we're flying in tens of thousands of people into airports. The truckers that need ships. All those things have to be coordinated, and we did it as a group. So there isn't any one person or any one company that should take the accolade. It's all of us. And because of that, we built the ships, and you made sure the port had enough space for us to bring them here. Well, that's a relationship of profound importance, because we know we can count on you tomorrow too. We're going to keep building more ships, but we know we can count on the port being the aggressive and proactive. Look at the thing we're building here in the port. It's 3 terminals in one. So that vision and that cooperation is what makes it successful. So we're very pleased to be part of that Miami component.
That's great. That's good. Let's get a little bit into the details of what you're building. Can you talk a little bit about what's being built at the port, as well as your facilities that are being built over in Overtown?
Yeah. So MSC, we don't stop either. We keep looking at the future. I used a phrase with Rod earlier today. There was a phrase that when I grew up, it said, if it's not broken, don't fix it. We've all heard that when we were growing up. If it's not broken, you got to make it better. That's what the has done. Sorry. That's what the Port Miami has done. That's what the city of Miami has done. That's what the communities in this area have done. Because you can't just sit back and say, oh, it's okay, everything's great. Because if we did that, the ships would be passengers. And we kept making them better. So given that, this terminal here will be the largest cruise terminal in the world.
Thank you.
It cost a few bucks, but we got the mayor and the county and everybody else to agree to how we would do this, but it will take 3 ships on the same day. 2 of them will be MSC ships on the same day. It can handle 36,000 people in 1 day turnaround. 36,000. In one terminal, one building, one garage, one everything. But the Arquitectica and the team working on that, they were great. We took more than 2 years to figure this out. And you have to do it right, because it's going to be there for 50 years or more. So we're smart about it. We engaged the right people for it. We had the community working with it. And now in the not too distant future, in a few months, it will be serving the great cruise guests that we will bring here. So that alone kind of puts, and I use this phrase often, this is going to be an iconic port. It already is the Magic City and the biggest port, all that. But I think there'll be airplanes flying over those 2 or 3 terminals there, and particularly the one we're building, and taking and making sure that like what is it in Australia, in Sydney, people take pictures of that. I think this is going to help make us even more of an icon in this part of the world. So that will help. Now, when you build like this, that's quite a bit of money to build. But we're also investing in our human resources, and we're going to be the building is up, but right here in Overtown slash Sandy, what's the name? Sandy, what? 55 block, I guess it's called Block 55. We'll be in there by next year, and there'll be 660 employees as part of that, indirect and direct. There'll be $65 million of economic impact for the area every year. And we need to make sure that the community respects not just our sustainability, because we're going to make sure. No, I sent the mayor 108 page report about our sustainability. Every year we produce it, 108 pages about what we have done as a company for sustainability. So when people start to recognize who MSC is, because of the terminal, because our big ships will be there, and because our infrastructure will have to grow with it. So this new office building will house MSC Cruises, MSC Cargo, and MSC Explorer Journeys, which is our luxury brand. So it's going to be a place where we can feel like we're at home, really with roots in the ground, and that will make this terminal and that office building part of our contribution.
That's great. What do you see in terms of, you talked about job impacts. Do you see there being lots of jobs for local people with MSC?
There has to be. One, the economic impact for jobs is also related to everybody else that serves the 4 ships that we're going to have there. So the traffic of that is very useful in terms of economics. The employee base, we always love to have the local be part of that. We also must have the top quality people. And the reason why I mentioned to you earlier is that our industry has great ships and cruises are great, and everybody's applauding our industry for how we deliver a product. But the real essence of a cruise line is not me. It's those employees that are answering the phone and the ones that are serving the people on the ships. Those are the ones that make it or break it for us. So no matter what we do, and we can spend $1 billion for one of those ships, $1 billion. But without those people on the shore answering the phones properly, and without the people on board doing the job they need to do, it's a bad investment. We think it's a good investment to the way we've managed it. So local employees, they should start coming towards us, and we will screen them, and we will hire as many as we can. And I think South Florida, certainly Miami at large, Dade County at large, will have a significant number of those 600 and plus.
That's right. I mean, for us, that's really cool. This idea that, we want to bring jobs and investment that really impact the local economy. The cruise industry in your 52 years has gone through a lot of challenges and changes. One of the big ones, though, that, a lot of folks seem like our memory is so short term, but people thought the cruise industry was dead when COVID hit in 2020. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you all kind of navigated that storm and kind of where you are today?
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up, because there's two positive, I always say in every adversity there's an equal or greater opportunity, right? The gray cloud and all that stuff. There's actually some incredible opportunities that came out of COVID. As serious as that was, it was painful for all of us in every respect. But MSC, and I'm going to say this as if I'm bragging, but it's a fact. When COVID hit, our owner and our management group decided immediately to engage every scientist, every doctor, every medical group, every community, particularly in Europe, all of the European medical authorities. We engaged all of them in March of 20. And we said, we want to find out what we're going to have to do to make every one of our ships incredibly safe, more safe than you going into Publix. More, and that was a good, we didn't use Publix as the comment, but going into the cafeteria in your hometown. We did that over a few months. By August 2020, we launched our first ship with all the COVID protocols you could possibly think of. There wasn't anything we left out. If it was 75 protocols, we made sure it was 150. And all of the science and all of the medical authorities endorsed it. And they said, boy, you guys did something incredible. You guys have every step covered. We were testing the crew members before they left their hometown, and they had to quarantine for 2 weeks before they were serving somebody on board a ship, and they had to be tested again, PCR tested again, before we allowed them to work. We did that with every crew member. Every guest was tested. We didn't let anybody on. We had the most sterilized operation in the world. There wasn't any place on the planet that was probably more sterile than our ships. And we proved it by operating. August, September, October, November, December. We added another ship in January, February. All of a sudden, all of our ships were at sea, and we had 0 incidents. Yeah, some people were getting the flu, and if somebody tested positive for COVID, they were immediately quarantined. All that kind of stuff went on. We never had an outbreak. That didn't even happen with norovirus. And here it was COVID. So the industry as well got together, and we did the same kind of research. And the industry finally, by July, I think in 21, the industry started to regain itself. I will point out one fact that nobody realizes. There were only about 5 ships that were part of this COVID experience that turned our industry upside down. 5 ships out of 230. Wow. So technically, we weren't really this incubator, but we were portrayed as it because of the news stories. So we were able to get back on our feet. The second lining in the cloud is since COVID, hotels and resorts, they doubled their prices, and people were going crazy, going like, how much am I going to pay now for my Italy vacation or my cruise vacation, my Caribbean resort? They came into cruising now. We never had that group before. There was probably 60% of the population that don't even look at cruise as an alternative. And now all of a sudden, a good portion of them are going, oh, I saw that big ship in PortMiami. Let me see what that's all about. Oh, it's only $800 for a week. Oh my God, let me try a cruise. The best news of all is people that cruise, 90% of them say it's the best experience they ever had on a vacation. So all these new people are becoming this new legacy for us of the future growth. So we handled COVID better than most businesses, and MSC handled it better than most cruise lines.
Congratulations, congratulations. Now you guys,
we'll get one.
You kind of know me by now. You kind of know me by now, and I'm nothing if not transparent. I have to say this. It sounds almost like a paid advertisement for MSC Cruises. It is not. This is not a paid advertisement for MSC Cruises.
I lived it.
So in doing my research, I've the last few days I've really been trying to understand this company and what drives it. And one of the things, and it was reaffirmed even in our conversation prior to this, that this is a company that really has values. And so many times we tend to think that the companies that are the most successful are those that aren't thinking about people, that aren't being aggressive on like core values. You're very aggressive, and I want to call out a few points, that I think are worth mentioning specifically as we talk about the environment. So MSC Cruises describes its sustainability goals as a long-term business commitment that can be reached by reducing emissions, protecting the ocean, and using resources more efficiently. The company is on track to meet the International Maritime Organization carbon intensity goal of a 40% reduction from 2008 levels ahead of the 2030 milestone, and the goal is to reach net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2050. Some of the things that they've done LED lighting and heat recovery systems. They're connecting to shore power at PortMiami to turn off engines while connecting to the local grid. They've got the Ocean Cay Marine Reserve, which has been recognized for its marine conservation efforts. They're participating in a comprehensive program to train deck officers on reducing the likelihood of collisions with whales. dolphins and porpoises in the ocean. And the foundation even focuses on environmental conservation, and you're being intentional about your carbon footprint. To someone who, I'm no expert, you have more knowledge of the industry in your pinky than I have in my whole body, right? But to me, that sounds like a lot of spending money. Why does it make sense for MSC Cruises to make that kind of investment?
Well, we've been in the marine business as a family for 300 years. We have all of our assets are basically marine related. Cruise ships, luxury cruise ships, cargo ships, ferries, you name it, we're in the marine business. And the owner started out as a marine captain in 1970. And he built this enormous enterprise over the last 50 years. So I think that we have a lot at stake. And when you have a lot at stake and you're private, you're going to make sure you're above and beyond compliance. That is a theme. And when you talk about values, we have core values that start from the owner all the way down to the last person on board. And those core values have two specific engines. One is sustainability, environment, and the other is community. That we have to be engaged with communities. I call myself a relationship engineer. I'm not a chairman. What does a chairman do? Basically nothing. I have relationship engineering skills, let's say, where I want to engage everyone face to face, like a meeting like this, where we can talk about common problems and common solutions and how are we going to go about doing this. And MSC has that from the owner, that we're in the community. He says, we're going to take care of communities. We're going to make sure we engage with them. We're going to make sure our foundation supports them, the MSC Foundation. We do that through relief efforts, as I mentioned earlier, but we also do it through other proactive events and things like that. So we know that we have those two core values. When it comes from, I'll give you an example, a couple examples, because you made a few, but there are more. And again, it's 108 pages, so I'll give you another minute's worth. We're not even allowed to throw our little coffee, the little coffee things you do, we're not allowed to throw them in a garbage pail. They have to be in a recycle bin. We have single-use plastic rules. We have new technology that allows us, like the propellers on a ship, that reduces noise, that helps the marine environment. We use shore power now wherever it is. All of our ships that are being built, including the World America that's coming here in April, shore power. We know that that's important. There are not many places on the planet that allow it, that can offer it, but we know that we're going to need it. And our growth will not stop. We have 22 new ships, a couple new luxury ships, and all these cargo ships. We're still growing. This port will see more of MSC. That's why we thought 3 terminals or 3 berths were important, because we know what we're doing in South Florida and in Miami. So our vision says we're going to keep growing, we're going to keep needing more support, and sustainability, and I teach my grandkids, it's a joke, but I ask my 2 young grandkids, they're 5 and 6, what's your favorite color? One of them says yellow, and the other one says purple. And I say, from now on, say green. And they say to me, why? And I say, because that's going to be the most common used word in our language for the next 30 or 40 years. So say green. So we are green. We are investing, and you talk about it's a lot of money. Yes, but we have no choice. We want to keep growing. We want to make sure we're safe. We want to make sure the customer knows what we do and how safe we are, because that's going to be a component for people to buy a brand. They're going to say, how sustainable? What's this environmental rule? The owner says it's the most important thing. My boss does not start a meeting without first saying, what have we done for sustainability this week? He doesn't start a meeting. It's the first thing we talk about as an executive group. So we know that it's at the core, and it trickles down. Everybody gets it, and we're all part of it. I say this, and I'll close this part with this. There are 3 types of companies or people in the world, 3. The first is people that could give a damn about the environment and they do nothing. There's a lot of those around. The second is the group that only do what they have to do because they know they're going to get in trouble if they don't. The third is the ones that do it because they know it's their responsibility. They know they have to do it, and they're willing to invest whatever it takes to make sure they keep that track, to be above and beyond compliance. So I won't be around in 2050 probably, but I want to make sure that whatever we do to get to that net zero and all the things that may change along the way, we know what it is today, but some things could change to make it more difficult, but we have to have the money ready. We have to engage with scientists, with technology experts to make sure that these engines are the best performers, that the fuels we may use in the future are the safest fuels. So all of that takes a lot of money, but it takes a vision and a commitment, and that's what MSC does.
That's good. That's good. I want to get a little bit specific. What's going on the island, the Marine Reserve? What's that about?
It's about $400 million. By the way, this building here was $100 million for us to do that. So we have the resources. We're successful. We want to keep making sure we keep investing in the community. The Marine Reserve was a dream of the owner a number of years ago that destinations needed also a place to show off sustainability and environment. And that we took a industrial wasteland. It was a sand excavation island of 95 acres or so. And all of it was steel and stuff under the ocean, and it was deserted, and it was horrible. And we said, we're going to create a marine reserve and an environmental showpiece on this territory, on that footprint. And we did. We took all traditional foliage. We did all excavation. We took out so much steel. We're planting now coral restoration trees. And we have a marine reserve center on the island that is going to be opening soon, where college students and scientists will come. We are going to make sure we create a super coral. And that's one of the keys of that. The super coral is for us to find a way to get coral to resist temperature rising of the oceans. Because at a rate of 50%, coral is dying. It's just dying. And that's not good. Why? Because 25% of all ecosystem of marine life depends on that coral. 25% around the world. It's only a footprint of 3%, the coral. But if that goes away by 1%, all of a sudden, marine life will not survive. So we're investing heavily into creating a super coral that will sustain itself and not bleach and not die from this environmental exposures. And we're really on our way to doing it. So there'll be a significant kind of revelation of how we can save coral, and even around the world, not just in the Bahamas. So that investment has more of giving our guests an exposure to that they'll see this marine center, that they'll see what we're doing with the coral. They can take diving trips to see it. They will be able to see how we've kept it pristine. So all the green stuff is also being invested there. So, solar panels and all that stuff. We want it to become the footprint that says you can almost get to zero by just doing the right thing. And I think that's what the Marine Reserve will do.
That's great. That's great. I'm going to ask him 2 more questions, and then we're going to open it up to the floor. Question 1. I was fortunate last week we had our Beacon Council board retreat, and former Governor Bush he was a past chair of the Beacon Council, so I had the chance to interview him, and one of the things that he said, which was Rod, the best advice I can give you is when you have somebody, have somebody that's been somewhere or knows something that you don't have, is to ask them for advice. So I'm going to, ask you for some advice. Our organization, and I think our community, is in a really interesting time. I often, those who have heard me speak have all heard me give the analogy that I have an 18-year-old son, but when he was 16, he challenged me to a foot race, and needless to say, I did not win. And I was the only one that was surprised that I didn't win because, I thought I would beat him. And folks said, "You're a middle-aged man. Why would you be what makes you think you'd be the 16-year-old?" And I often use that analogy to talk about Miami, that Miami is a relatively young community, but we're kind of stretching our legs kind of like a 16, 17-year-old kid. We've got great assets. We've got a world-class port, world-class airport, great universities, great population base. But also like a 16-year-old kid, we're trying to figure out who do we want to be when we grow up and how do we actually get there. And we know that that period of growing up is really tough. And I think we're right in the heart of it right now because we're not a market that can compete the way that we used to because we're much more expensive. We've got to compete against the New Yorks and Chicagos, and I think we should consistently win. My question is, I'm the CEO of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. Our job is to make sure that this economy continues to grow and be strong and be healthy. What can we be doing to support not just MSC, but other companies that have the kind of values that we want to have in this community? How can we bring more companies like you here?
Through dialogue is the first. And I mentioned to you earlier, have a meeting once a month or once a quarter with anybody that has a stake in this, that can do something about it, that can contribute an idea, and make sure we all avoid adversity, because somebody's making a mistake somewhere, and make sure we all use best practices, and make sure we have a dialogue about it. I think that's the most important. But also, I think there's some core, I preach this to the Caribbean destinations, which the prime ministers are always asking me this kind of advice. And I tell them the two main things for them is cleanliness and safety. Now I've added environment. They need to jump the gun now, because they may not have any plans for it, but they need to, because there'll be ships that won't call on destinations that don't have this philosophy. So I always preach to them safety and cleanliness. Certainly Miami, over the years, they had the drug things back in the 80s, and there are things with some crime and stuff that were national news or international news. We need to make sure that we never have a stain, and so you have to be proactive in above and beyond safety and above and beyond cleanliness. So people start to say, wow, I just came back from someplace, and I won't mention it. Well, I will mention, I was in Portugal for a couple of weeks. It was incredible how clean it was. I noticed it. I walked around to all the restaurants. I noticed how clean they were inside the restaurant, how the streets were clean, how they cared about it. And that's a part of environmental protection too. So the city of Miami, and certainly this whole area, we need to make sure we put that above and beyond. There has to be. With social media today, it can be the best thing you've ever done or the worst thing you didn't do. Because the social media will show pictures of, look what's happening in San Francisco. All you see on the news is homeless people on the streets and all that stuff. So you got to try and prevent social media from becoming your adversary. They have to become your advocate. So above and beyond, cleanliness and safety. Investments. It's hard to ever judge how much money something needs because it's always going to be more than what somebody said. Right? Even building ships, they tell us it's 900 million and then it becomes $1 billion. So you have to have investors. You need to have people who have financial support, the mechanism that your dreams will then be in this discussion every month or everything. So I think you need to make sure you have a financial strength that allows you to go above and beyond and do the things that maybe other cities are not able to do. So get the right people in the room, ask them the right questions, get more financing and whatever support you need, and make sure you deal with those core challenges.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great advice. So my last question, we've got this time machine, and we take you to the year 2050. Where's the cruise industry?
Fortunately, and again, I come from such a historical background of this 52 years that I never thought we could get where we are today. I just wouldn't have dreamed about it in 1972. In 1982, I never thought it would be that good. In 1988, when I started Celebrity Cruises with a bunch of guys, I never thought that we would be so successful so quickly, but we were. And the press kept putting microphones underneath me. Do you think these new ships can handle the traffic? You think that they'll be able to find the passengers? And I kept saying yes, because as we build them, the people are coming. So our investments won't stop, even through 2050. Our industry is in the best place it's ever been. And why do I say that? because I've watched the hills over the last 50 years. Gulf wars, economic crises, hurricanes, you name it. There were things that got us up and down, COVID as a major example. But since COVID, what I explained earlier about we're getting a new breed of people coming into our category, and they love cruising because 90% say they love it. So I think that our industry is now what I call mainstream. For the last 50 years, we were a niche. 20% of the people thought that cruise might be for them. The other 80% ignored us. Now, all of a sudden, these people are looking at our industry through the shipbuilding and the expand. You can now take a cruise from almost every port in the world. You can start a cruise. We have 4 ships that are going to be doing 4 different types of itineraries out of the port of Miami. And by the way, from an environmental point of view, we have we call it optic technology. We're even making our itineraries the most efficient they can be so we burn less fuel. Even that. Every itinerary is scrutinized about that. So when you think about 2050, I think that our industry may be on top of the world, only because what we've seen the last 50 years and what the next 20 or so may be, we are now not a niche, we are mainstream, and we're delivering on our promises to our guests, and we're doing it efficiently, and we're still making profits, and we're going to still build more ships. So I think you're going to see maybe not much bigger than what we're bringing. On April next year, we're bringing our biggest and newest ship, LNG, shore power. It's a magnificent ship. It's going to start its cruising life right here on April 9th. April 9th. It'll stay here for as long as can be. And we keep building more LNG ships, and we're looking for more technology for better fuel, because sometimes the fuels are not available for us to reduce the carbon, but we're looking for them, and we'll find them. So I think our industry will be on top of the world.
That's great. How many people will the new ship hold?
6,500 or so. She's 200,000 tons, a couple thousand crew members. But the size, let me give you one example of my experience, what I learned that we did differently that made us better. Years ago, when I talked about those 800 passenger ships, the space ratio was 20. That meant that there were 20 square whatever for every guest on board. Even though the ships now are 5 times bigger, the space ratio is 40. Meaning, we not only built them bigger to carry 6,000, but now each one of those people have twice as more space that they would have had on a ship of a previous generation. That took money. We had to build bigger rooms and bigger lounges and all that stuff. So our investment also had the vision that we needed to give people the most incredible experience in the most incredible environment and give them a type of vacation that doesn't exist anywhere else. And we think MSC is the best place to do that. Thank you very much.